Testimonies. I'm going to share a small part of my testimony today, something that's close to my heart that I think can help people. And I hope you take the time to listen right through until the end. You know, we all have our stories, and I think, you know, if you have a story, you should be willing to share your story to help other people. And, you know, for me, it began, I'm just going to give you a little bit of background, but when I was growing up, I grew up in a home where there was a lot of alcohol abuse, and I know that a lot of people have been in that situation, some worse, and there was a lot of fighting and a lot of negativity. And my parents both came from very broken backgrounds, so I think did the best they could, but they were broken people trying to live a broken life. And so there was a lot of just negativity and a lot of fighting. And as a child, I was a very sensitive little girl, and so I just couldn't handle the verbal verbiage that was going on, the loudness, the shouting, and all those kind of things. I couldn't handle it. And you know, I remember thinking in certain ways it was so stupid, and God just brought it back to my remembrance recently in the last couple of years, because I didn't really remember the way that I thought at the time. But the Lord reminded me that, you know, in those moments where you're living in this life, it's always chaos, it's always loud, there's always this fighting. And when the fighting starts or when the drinking starts, it's like you just know this is not going to end well. Here we go again. And I had this like thought pattern in my mind that if I could just be less, if I could just be quiet, if I could just sort of disappear into the background, maybe things would be better, which is such a stupid way to think, because I wasn't the problem. They were never fighting over me. It never had anything to do with me. But you know, sometimes the devil really lies to you. And I really imprinted that lie of, if I can just be less me, if I can just be less noticeable, somehow it's going to make things more peaceful in this home. And obviously it never did that. But what it did do was it made me suppress who I was as a person. It made me hide who I was. It made me become a quiet person who didn't want to give an opinion, who didn't want to have anything to say. You know, a lot of the times when parents are fighting, and I was in the middle of it many times, right in the middle of it, and they want you to take sides. And I think that's what really got me to that point of thinking, if I can just not be noticed, if I can just sort of melt into the background and not be noticed, then this won't be as bad. Because, and you know, parents, if you do this, you have to not do it. It's so damaging. But it was like, if I can just be less me, then that would be better, because they try and pull you into it, and it's just a very bad thing. And you know, some people have been through far worse than that. I can only speak to my own experience, but it put me into a really damaging way of thinking. And so growing up, and you know, you become a teenager and all that kind of thing, and I had no idea who I was. And you know, that question people ask when you go to job interviews, tell us who you are. And I used to hate that so much, and I think most of us do. It's like, what do I say? You know, who am I? But I really didn't have a clue who I was. And to be very honest, I didn't even realize that I didn't know who I was. I thought, well, I'm Sylvia, and you know, this is my personality, whatever. But I'd never really thought about it until God really opened my eyes. And you know, the day that God opened my eyes was many years later. I was a born again Christian at that point. I got, you know, the Lord touched me at a very young age when I was 10 years old, but I did backslide off that, and I will speak more about that in a different video, so you can hang on for that one. But I became very good friends with someone who's still my friend today. Her name's Bernadette, if she ever watches this. And I remember us going shopping one day, and I'm not even sure if I ever shared this story with her. We went shopping one day, and I needed a duvet cover. It sounds like such an arbitrary thing, but I needed a duvet cover, and I went and we were shopping, and I saw this duvet cover. It had bright green and orange and all these bright, vibrant colors. And I chose this duvet cover, and I went home, put it on my bed, and I looked at it and I thought, I hate this duvet cover. It's so bright. It's just this crazy duvet cover, which is, there's nothing wrong with it. You know, if you like that kind of thing, it's fantastic. And it was like, I just felt the Lord speaking to me in my heart, saying to me, you bought that because Bernadette likes it. And it's not because she said she liked it. She didn't say that. She may have said something, but that wasn't, it wasn't, I'd done it because she verbalized anything. But I knew what kind of things she liked, and I think at that time it would have been something that she really liked. And in that moment, I realized I had no clue who I was. And the thing is, I'm saying this is my testimony. This is not how I got saved, but your testimony is not always about how you got saved. You know, this is a testimony of how God changed my life and how He changed my thinking. And so I'm in this situation. I realize here I am. I've been born again for, well over 15 years at this point, because I got born again young. And I don't know who I am. I've been in the church for many years. I don't have a clue who I am. I've listened to pastors. I've heard preaching about how you have to know who you are in Christ. And I suddenly opened my eyes and realized I have no idea who I am. And so, I just went home and I did this exercise. I got a notepad and I began to write down all the things I liked and all the things that I didn't like. It was something I just felt like in my heart I really needed to do. And the list was eventually, it was 4 pages long, 4 pages of just everything. And it was from the very important things to the completely insignificant. But I knew I had to figure out who I was, because if you don't know who you are, what are you going to do in your life? And so I started working on that in my life, and it got to that point where I'd written that out and I'd said to the Lord, you really need to help me. And at that point in my life, I was working for a church, and Bernadette also worked in the same church with me. And I remember it was early on at that time, and I'd said to the Lord when I got that job, I said, I will never ever lose myself in this job. I will never allow this job to replace my relationship with you. And I was quite determined that that's what I was going to do. I need, and it was all part of like knowing who I am and having this relationship with God and all that kind of thing. And, I'm speaking about all this because it's so important for you and I to realize that so many times we find our identity in all kinds of things, whether it's your education, whether it's the money you've got, whether it's your who you're connected to, your family and all that kind of thing. Sometimes you can take your identity from who you're connected to in a good way or a bad way. You got a good family that everybody knows and it makes you feel good about yourself. But there's some people who identify with their family that is a terrible family that people look down on, and then they look down on themselves. And you can identify with things like that, or how much money you've got, or how educated you are. And it's almost like we judge ourselves instead of identifying with Him, identifying with, being in Christ. And, we all say that we do. It's the right spiritual answer. But I realize after many years of being in the church that you can say it, but is it actually the truth? Because all of us know how to say yes, amen, to the spiritual and to the right answer. And so I was working there, and, there was a lot of stuff that went on at that particular place. And I won't really speak to who or what or anything else at this point. And one day I'll share the rest of that story. But, there did come a point where I felt manipulated by people in the church and certain things that had happened. And I began to spiral downwards in my life to a place where it wasn't good. I was a Jesus-loving person that had been in a relationship with God for a long time, but my life began to spiral downwards. And I just didn't feel like anything was going right for me, being judged by people and all that kind of thing. And still that thing of feeling like I can't be myself, like I'd had when I was a little girl, still feeling I can't quite be myself because whoever I am is not going to be acceptable to other people. And the long and short of it is, and again, I will share what actually happened in the story at some point in the future. I just need to be careful because some people are still alive and some people could be impacted by it. So we'll leave that there for now, but I will share it one day. But long story short, I ended up getting fired from the church, and they were right to do it, even though there were extenuating circumstances and things that other people did do wrong. I did get fired from the church because I arrived there under the influence of alcohol, and I take full responsibility for that. It was a long time ago. I'd got into a really bad place in my life and stupidly went to work on a Sunday night, and I'd had too much alcohol, and I arrived and I was not in a good place, crying and sitting about. Luckily no one in the church actually saw me, but some of my co-workers did, and I was up in the office, and obviously everybody found out about it, and that was the end for me. And I can't even overstate how much it broke me when I got fired. I knew it was my own fault. There was no way that I could ever say they shouldn't have done it. But it broke me so much because from a very young age, I knew God had called me to be in ministry. And when I started going to this church, I knew God had called me to be in this church. And, I'd begun over those years, even though I'd said I'll never lose my identity or myself in this job, I did. Because what happened was I began to see my identity as who I was in the church. And I worked really hard. And, if you had a problem, you'd come to me. I would solve whatever problem I could. I was the kind of person that I would help wherever. I was that useful person. Sometimes you can be that workaholic, useful person. Sometimes I'd work till 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, getting stuff done. I was so motivated. And, also wanting the approval of pastors and all that kind of thing, to feel like I really am impacting and doing something important here. And so, my whole identity at that point had become wrapped up in this job that I had, in being useful at the church and having the approval of pastors and leaders and elders and all that kind of thing. And suddenly I have been fired, and not in there was no good thing about it. You walk into church, and I can laugh about it now, but I was so broken. I walked into church, and I remember, you walk in and people would usually come and say, oh, please can you do this, please can you do that. They just sort of turn their head and walk the other way. Or they put their head down. They don't want to see you. They don't want to have anything to do with you. But I decided right then and there, I said, I'm going to stay. I said, Lord, I'm staying in this church. I'm not going to leave. I know I've done wrong. I've been fired. All that stuff's happened, but I'm not going to leave. And sometimes when you've done wrong things, we want to run away. You can't run away. You need to stay and heal and get better. I just remember, waking up one morning after I'd lost my job and sitting in the place where I lived and feeling so lost and feeling so alone and feeling like, who am I? I was right back at that same place again that I was years before. Who am I? And I realized as I began to question that between myself and God, I still had no idea who I was. And it was disturbing because, at this point, I've been saved for close to 20 years. I had no idea who I was. I'd been finding all my comfort and love and approval in my job, in being useful inside the church. And it just broke me, because I remember going to church and thinking, I can't do any of the stuff I used to do before. Nobody wants to talk to me. Nobody's interested in me. And, just getting to that point where, and there were even the things attached to that situation where, even though I told the truth to my own detriment, there were people there that lied about me to my senior pastors, straight to their face. They lied about me. And even everybody believed them, because I'm the girl who arrived there and had been drinking. So of course they're going to believe the other people. And so just this place being so broken, nobody believes you, nobody wants to have anything to do with you. And it's a hard place. It's a really hard place. And I remember, to be very honest, I wanted to kill myself. I just thought there's just nothing left to go on with here. I said to the Lord, I just want to be dead. There's nothing more that I want than to be dead right now, because I'm so unhappy. Everything I feel you called me to, I've lost it. Everything I felt that I was worthy of, I feel like I'm not anymore. And the looks on people's faces and all that sort of thing, all I can say, if I can describe how I felt, it was like if you see a very fragile glass and it's just broken on the floor into tiny little shards, and you just know, looking at it, you're never going to put it back together again. And that's how I felt, and I just remember, and it was such a groundbreaking moment for me, well, not moment, but moments over time, over weeks, because I was so lost right then. And you can sometimes be in a relationship with God. You can love him and you can still be lost because you've made a wrong choice, a wrong decision, or you just haven't got to the point where God's really matured you in that area. Like for me, I didn't know who I was. And I remember waking up every day and just crying. And I remember phoning a friend of mine and saying, please, I can't sleep, bring me some sleeping tablets. And because I thought, well, I can just take these sleeping tablets and it will be over. I'll be done. I don't want to. I lived on the 21st floor of this building, and You know, people regularly used to break into that building to come and commit suicide. And I lived on the 21st floor, and I remember thinking, you know, it's just not in me to jump off. I thought if I jump off and I change my mind, there's no coming back from it. And I don't like heights, so that wouldn't have been a very good thing. And, you know, I might laugh a little bit about it now, but it was a very serious thing at the time. And so I asked this friend to bring me sleeping tablets, and they said yes, they would. And I waited and waited and waited, and they never came. I don't know why they didn't come. They never called to say why. They just didn't come. And I never phoned them again. I don't know why I did. I just sat there on the floor at the back end of my bedroom, because the front end was right on the balcony, right on the 21st floor, where you just look down. And I knew there's no way I should be standing out there in the frame of mind I was in. And, you know, sometimes you just need a few hours to get you over that hump. And I eventually went to sleep. I'd lied to him. I didn't have a problem sleeping. I slept. I just said it because I wanted something I could take. And so anyway, I woke up the next day, and I was still as sad and lost and alone and all the rest of it. But because the Lord had made sure no one came to help me, you know, I'd gotten over that thing where it was so imminent that I wanted to do something about ending my life. And, you know, the one thing I did, and that's why in any video that you watch in the future, or maybe if you see any past videos, you'll see I always speak about the word, because it's not because someone told me to. It's not because it's the spiritual thing to say. It's because I know it saved my life. I would wake up every day crying, every single day crying. And the only thing I could do was get up, my funny green Bible that I had at the time, open it up and just begin to read. And I wasn't reading because I felt spiritual. I wasn't reading because of anything else other than absolute desperation. There's nothing else I can do. I can't go to work. I can't speak to anybody. I can't tell my parents how bad I feel, because if they knew how I felt about ending my life, they would have gone out of their minds. I said, Lord, I can't tell anyone, but I'm going to read this because there's nothing else that I know. I don't know what to do. I'm so desperate. And so, you know, when I did that, just thinking about it now, it brings it all back. But it was like when I did that, it wasn't a spiritual thing for me. It did a spiritual job, but I didn't do it because I felt spiritual. You know, when you're in those dark places, you don't feel spiritual. You don't feel anything. I didn't feel spiritual enough to pray a fancy prayer. I just cried. All I did was cry and read every day. When I woke up, I knew if I didn't read that Bible, I was going to die. And I promise you, it's literally how I felt. If I don't read this, I'm going to die. And I'd gotten past the point of wanting to be dead and knowing that I needed to live. And you know what? It took time. It wasn't like it just changed overnight. And so many times we go into dark places and you think if you do something right one day, it's just going to all be okay. It wasn't okay. It was not okay. It took weeks and months. But I can tell you one thing. It's the best thing that ever happened to me. I'm so glad that I got drunk and went to work. I'm so glad they fired me. I'm so glad that I felt lost, because if I hadn't, I would never had that time in my life where I got so into the word because I had nothing left. You know, so many times you and I only go to God when we've got nothing left. I wish that I'd done it before I had nothing left, but I learned such a valuable lesson that I don't regret a single thing. And you know, sometimes we have regrets. I always say, don't have any regrets. It doesn't matter what's happened in your life, no matter what you've done or where you've been, because whatever you've been through, God can teach you something and turn it out for the good in the end. And so I don't have any regrets about any of that, because by the end of it, and I think it took about 6 months, and I got slowly better, but you know, it was pretty intense of just doing that every single day. And that's why I always say, something I like to say all the time, is that God's word will save you every single day. Because I know by using his word, by just reading it, by making it my everything, it saved my life every single day. When nobody else knew what was going on, when nobody else understood, when no one else cared, his word changed everything. So like for me, if I speak about it and I say, you've got to go to the word is so important. The word will save your life. The word will heal you. The word will change you. It's not something that's said in a fake way. It's something that's said because I've been there. I've done it in absolute desperation. I know that it works. And God began to heal my heart and heal my life. And by the end of that, I knew who I was. I knew who Sylvia was. I knew who I was in Christ, and I knew exactly my strength was in Him, and without Him, that I was nothing. And so that's just a short little bit of my testimony. There's a lot more things that I wanted to speak about. And if you want to hear more of the things that God's really taken me through, subscribe to the channel, because there are some really important ones I'm going to be speaking about. You know, I do like to do Bible teachings, and I'm going to continue to do that. But I really want to, there's a couple of that I'm going to do. I'm going to speak about how God helped heal me from self-hatred, which was a huge thing for me. And I'm going to speak about how God helped me get over prescription drug addiction. You know, there's many other things. So if you want to hear those, subscribe. And, you know, I really appreciate you watching this far. If you like the video, press like. And also, you know what, if you're in a bad place right now and you want me to pray for you, just put whatever you want down in the comments below. And, you know, I can agree with you and just trust God with you for whatever situation you're in. And also, if you want to share things God has brought you out of or taught you, go ahead and comment as well, because I'm interested to hear what God's doing in your life. And I'm so grateful to God for what He's done in mine. So I'm going to share more of these and also more Bible teachings as time goes on. I hope you enjoyed hearing about this. Pretty hard to talk about. I've never publicly really done something like this where it's going to be on the internet forever. But I feel like it was an important thing for me to do. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.